So the iPhone 15 Pro's flagship features weren't as grand this year, and at first the keynote seemed a little bit underwhelming. And yes, I know there's supposed to be incremental features to add up over the years for people to upgrade after, 3 or 4 years. But after getting the phone in my hands, all these smaller changes actually make for a better user experience and actually make a bigger difference than I thought, but mostly for a select group of people, and it's mostly surrounding the cameras and USB-C. Let's get into it. Okay, so we can't talk about this phone without talking about the updated design. So with the titanium frame and the slightly rounded corners, I thought this was Apple's way of just making sure they can sell you more cases this year. And it probably was, but honestly, getting this phone in your hand, it does feel a lot more comfortable, and it's only supposed to be 10% lighter than last year's 14 Pro. But honestly, it does feel, it makes a difference. It does make a difference. One of my biggest gripes with last year's iPhone is that it was so heavy and it just wasn't comfortable to hold. And this is a welcome upgrade. And I did try to put my 14 Pro's case on my 15 Pro's and it doesn't fit. It's just like this footprint's a little bit smaller, so it's not snug around it. And if you drop it, at least with my case, it'll probably just fall off. So you're probably gonna have to get a new case. And of course, they updated the mute switch to an action button. And I'm not gonna lie, this took me a while to get used to, mostly because on my 14 Pro, I use that button like once or twice a year. It was always on silent mode, and then on the rare occasion I might swip it. So I kind of forget this is a thing, but originally I had it on the camera and it's a little bit uncomfortable. I think maybe they should have lowered it down a little bit. So right now it sits obviously above the volume buttons, but eventually I just ended up switching it to the Notes app because I just found it to be more convenient to just press the camera button on the screen. You can launch any app with it. I feel like it's still very functional and most people will get good use out of this. And you can still set it to just mute your phone if that's what you want. And lastly, in terms of design changes on the outside, we have the USB-C port from, the last 10 years of Lightning or whatever, but we're gonna talk about that more in a bit. So this year, powering the Pro phones, we have the A17 Pro Chip, and this is the first year Apple's used the Pro naming scheme on their iPhone chips. Some overheating issues, which by the time this is out, might have already been addressed, so Apple is aware of them. Pretty much the software needs to be optimized, and developers need to work on the apps too, to just make it more compatible with the chips. But hopefully by the time this video is out, that's all been resolved. If not, Apple's addressing it. And the A17 Pro chip has a USB 3.0 controller, so you're gonna have the super fast transfer speeds. With USB-C, you get a wide range of accessories like plugging into your external monitor or connecting straight into Ethernet. So since I feel like some of the biggest features were around the camera, specifically in the video side of things, like shooting ProRes 4K at 60 or recording log footage, this kind of just helps you streamline everything, just transferring your footage into your computer or just shooting into external SSD. And I'm going to show you what that looks like in a second. But one of the other big camera features is next-gen portraits, which is not exclusive to this phone. It's also available in the standard iPhone 15s, but that's a really nice feature. So pretty much now, if it detects a subject, whether that's a human, a cat, or a dog, it will automatically get all the information it needs without you having to set it to portrait mode. So let's say you forgot or whatever. I still feel like portrait mode, and this is the same thing last year, I don't think it's gotten that much better. Portrait mode isn't perfect yet. Well, specifically when you're trying to blur the background. I'll throw some footage on the screen here, but it doesn't do a great job at, well, it does do a great job in certain situations at blurring out the background. Mostly if you set the f-stop too low, I feel like it looks artificial. It is artificial, but it's not supposed to look artificial. So the kind of workaround is to leave it around at a higher f-stop, like I'd say 5, 6. Honestly, I go as high as 8 sometimes, and I feel like that looks the most natural. Now, the main camera allows you to have 3 focal lengths, so it's just cropping in on the main camera sensor. So now you have 24, 28, and 35 to choose from. And of course, you have the ultra wide and the brand new 5x telephoto. And this can either be an upgrade or a downgrade depending on your needs. Because I personally don't find myself needing it, but I also didn't find myself needing last year's 3x telephoto. So the 5x is exclusive to the Pro Max, by the way. The way I see it, if you don't need a 5x or don't see yourself using it, you can just stick to the the smaller Pro model and save yourself $200. So they also made some improvements to the long exposure mode or the night mode. Pretty much it just lets more light into the sensor. So, it gives you a brighter image. It's nice. So now you can shoot at 4K 60 FPS to an external hard drive or SD card, which is nice because now you don't have to have all those huge files on your phone. And two, it can really speed up your workflow because you can just shoot to an SSD and then edit straight off there, which is where I think these little things add up to be a better pro phone, because we all know time is money, and if you can streamline your editing workflow or your shooting workflow, that makes this that much better of a pro phone. So my personal favorite feature this year is the ability to shoot in the log color profile. And here's the thing. People want their phone footage to look good straight out of camera, and that's fine. One of the best ways to tell when something was shot on an iPhone was how sharp and artificial it looks. Look at this clip I shot in log, and I'll show you what it looks like after it's graded. So this is what log footage looks like shot in Apple ProRes and action mode is enabled. So you're capped at 2.8K, but this is because it's zooming in on the sensor. That's how it removes all the jitters and stuff. But this is what the footage looks like graded, and then I'm gonna show you what it looks like ungraded straight out of camera. The last thing I want to talk about is gaming on the iPhone 15 Pro. So the A17 chip is so powerful that they'll be porting over full AAA titles that you can play natively on your iPhone. I'm not really much of a mobile gamer, but that is pretty impressive. I can't justify paying $70 for a AAA title to play on my mobile device. I don't know if that's just me, but it just seems like a lot of money. But if that's something you're into, then you'll have that soon. The other thing I want to mention is that Apple recently announced that they'll have more support for gamers on their MacBooks and desktops. And they're doing that right now using the game porting toolkit, which I feel like in the future they can use that and bring it over to the iPhone 15 or 16, 17, and so on. And I just wonder what that's gonna look like in a few years. Like you'll actually be able to play full AAA titles on this. I just don't know how they're gonna keep this device cool when they're running those usually graphic intensive games. Because computers and laptops, they all have like air cooling and fans, but this has nothing. There are phones out there with like external cooling systems, but it doesn't seem like Apple to add like maybe like an accessory they'll sell you. I can see them doing that. I feel like there's a potential here. Me personally, I'm not into it too much. I did test out some games. I tested out Genshin Impact and Call of Duty. And I even plugged in my PS5 controller to play Call of Duty. Now, here's some gameplay I'm asked, and they ran pretty smoothly. Genshin Impact was a little bit laggy for like the first minute or so. I guess it was because I was still installing the files and all that, but after that, it just ran perfectly smooth. It was, it worked fine. It was fun. All right, so honestly, I recommend this phone for anyone who shoots a lot of video and is looking to streamline their workflow. Just the convenience of having a phone that can shoot ProRes 4K 60 and log straight into an SSD that you can edit off. That can really streamline your workflow, and it can save you a lot of time. So while there's like subtle upgrades from the 14 Pro last year, it does add up to be overall a better experience. That's the iPhone 15 Pro, and I'll catch you guys on the next one.